Alright guys, when I load my paintbrush, I want to load it at a 45-degree angle, and I thin my paint out on the side of the plate. I try to stay away from the middle. That's like an emergency zone. And if we get into that middle too soon, we get kind of a mess with our paint. So what I do first, at the end of the brush, you just thin it out, 45-degree angle. And if you'll notice, I don't know if you can see that on the screen, you keep the paint at the end of the brush. Yep, that's the reddish brown. And I want to start, now, if you keep it at the end of the brush and you thin it out at that angle, you can keep your bristles really close together and you can do nice thin lines if you hold your brush straight up and down. For instance, on between the stem, I want to go right on top of that line. This is drawn with sign brush pens, and sign brush pens are water soluble, so they when the paint hits them, they kind of just melt into the paint. So if you hold your brush straight up and down, you can draw around there. You may want to get the small brush in some of these small areas if you feel more comfortable with it. And then after you do that, then just go back and forth on the wide side of the brush and fill in the wider areas. You do want to make sure you go around the sides and the top when you get to it. Now this color changes. So it's not going to be that same color on the bottom side of the stem. So I'm just doing the top side of the stem. I want to continue that stem, the line for it, right around the edge. And then color all that in. And that burnt sienna stretches over. It's fairly dark. If you want it darker than that, you can add a little bit of purple. So that purple, if I just grab some, I don't have to clean my brush. If I don't have a lot of paint on, I never paint with a lot of paint. Less is more. So I'm going to grab a little bit of purple and just run it along that stem. Kind of work it in to that wet paint. And the reason I'm going a little quick on this is if it dries, it doesn't mix in well. If you've got two colors and one dries, then you paint on top instead of mixing together. So this purple kind of goes in with that burnt sienna, just around the stem and the leaves. Okay, so what I did, I wanted a little bit darker close to the flower and the stem. So just grabbed a little bit of purple. And
Do I have to clean my brush out?
No, no, but thin it out. Don't dip in the top. When you're getting paint, don't dip in the top. Pull from the side, and you kind of rub it in at like a 45-degree angle. That way you don't have all this brush stroke showing. Now I'm going to continue this all the way to the right side, adding back in burnt sienna when I get to that corner. side, I'm going to start pulling down purple and blue together. That's below the stem in the background. And I'm going to go about 3/4 the way down. Where that swirly thing is, I'll stop right before that. Side down to the bottom and around. It gets very, very light, but it's a light purple in the background. Try not to dip right in the top of your white. You want to pull that white from the side, especially if this is already dry on this side. Now you want to tint that just a little bit. All right, so I'm cleaning my brush off in the bottom of that glass jar, bringing it up on the side, going to kind of tap it off. I don't want a lot of water. Too much water, you're going to be painting with soup, so we don't want a lot of water. I'm going to start on the left side. I want to start where my background's pretty much dry, that way I'm not pulling in a different color and making mud. I'm going to use that dark green. Go ahead and do the stem. Now at the top of the stem, it's going to be brighter, so you add yellow to make that green a little bit brighter. So put the dark green on the bottom of the stem, or the bottom side, and then just grab some yellow and hit the top side of that. It's going to take way more yellow than green. Y'all figured that out already, right? Okay. All right, so there's green and yellow there, and it doesn't have to be really smooth. And instead of drying your brush off, go ahead and just use some of that color that's still on your brush. You're going to fill in some of these leaves. I'm going to dot in where the leaves are because all those lines get a little bit confusing. Your leaves, I'm going to outline here. This part in leaves, it's and this is on the top side of this color that I'm putting in. This is like the kind of pod that the sunflower comes out of. So everything below that line is going to be colored in as green. If you want to change your brush to the little one, you can, but I'm going to keep using the little one. I mean the big one. To do darker green, you add a little blue. A little bit between petals, they'll all run together. For instance, you may have this one darker at the base and the next one in front of it lighter. That way you can see the separation of those petals. So I'm just going to follow my printout. If you want your petals more yellow or more orange or more red or even pink, there's a lot of sunflowers that have some pink in them, that coral color. If you're interested in making that color, that's going to be a tiny bit of yellow with more red, and you add white to it to get those pink tones. You can use either brush that you feel comfortable with. You want to start on the back petals, doing the back petals first, and then you'll do the ones on front. What I do when I'm doing flowers that have this many petals is I do a petal and usually skip one. I work around because if they're still wet, you can end up pulling that paint inside. So you start red and yellow. This is red and yellow with a little bit of white. And I like to see those brush strokes, so don't try to get it too smooth. You want to see the brush strokes. Now be careful if that paint around it is still wet. All right, so that's all you want to do. You want to continue that. I'm not going to do these that are in front of the head of the sunflower. I'm going to work on those bottom ones first. Then I'll come back and do that.
Hello? What? In the donut?
How you guys doing with paint? Y'all still good with paint?
Yeah, I am. Nobody right here. Whichever is coming out with you.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I like yours was good. That's good. You need to keep it this good. I don't know what kind of flour that is.
You get them.
No, I got too much bread. Being on that, we'll be like that.
I know.
That's how I always be. So,
You drive though, so.
yeah, and then I'm like, I forgot.
Please tell you, I called my 3 times. I sent him my call log. I didn't have no call. Yeah, that's what
Germany.
Okay, so the middle of the sunflower, I'm going to use both of my browns. I'm going to start with the burnt sienna, add a little bit of the darker brown in, and I want to do right along where those petals are. It's going to be more in shadow.
You said use the dark brown first?
You're using the burnt sienna, the lighter brown, and then mix the red brown with the dark brown. You can add some black to it if you want it really dark along those petals. Just be careful, don't add too much. How to do what, guys? Which one? The dots? Yeah. With the small brush, and I'm pushing against that point, just doing dots, just repetition of dots. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do that.